Karen,
Yes,
we've talked about so many things on this show.
that's true.
Each episode really has been pretty focused on a single modality and how
Mhm.
those listening can tap into them to help them on their spiritual path.
Mhm.
And we've also talked about how different everyone's paths are, how one path could be drastically different from another,
Mhm.
and how that's completely okay.
Right.
Right? Well, I think it might be time to start connecting the dots a little bit.
Okay.
So by the time that we finished this show, everyone listening is going to know exactly how things like past life healing, the chakras, and even manifestation are connected.
Very cool.
And we may even throw a fairy or two in the conversation.
Yay!
Stay with us because this one's going to be fun. My name is Will.
And I'm Karen.
And unlike Mulder and Scully,
we both want to believe.
so we've embarked on a journey of discovery.
We've talked to people deeply entrenched in the spiritual and metaphysical world.
We've thrown ourselves into weird and wonderful experiences. I even joined a coven of witches.
And wait, you joined a coven?
Yep, all in the interest of finding something
Anything.
that will prove that there's something beyond this physical,
three-dimensional world we all live in.
This is the Skeptic Metaphysicians. Hey there, I'm Will.
And I'm Karen.
And today's guest is Faith Streng. Now, she's a third-generation psychic healer, a Reiki master, cosmic channel, and manifestation coach who is lucky enough to have a mother and a grandmother who were both practitioners of a past life healing technique called spiritual response therapy.
Ooh.
That sounds promising. I
Weird.
can't wait to talk to her about it. At age 19, she began the work herself, and now she combines past life healing, chakra balancing, channeling, and coaching into a one-on-one restorative spirit programming session and believes strongly in teaching her clients accessible methods of self-care so they can become the empowered and joyful creators that we were all meant to become. I am excited to welcome to the show Faith Streng. Faith, welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Thrilled to have you.
Very excited about this.
I know when Karen found you on Instagram, she immediately said, "Oh, Will." So we get to thank Karen for bringing you on the show.
I know. I don't think I ever pick people. I'm like, oh, we got to reach out to her.
Yep. She definitely resonated with you for some reason. It was you were connected spiritually, I think.
Love it. Well, thank you, Karen.
Thank you for saying yes.
All right. Let's just get right to it, Faith. How is it all connected?
Well, the past life healing, working in the Akashic Records, which is basically the iCloud of everything that's ever existed, ever will exist, everything that's ever been thought is in this library or this iCloud. And going into that, we can understand why we have the challenges we do in this lifetime, why we have the relationships we do, and what our sole purpose is. And what I found that beyond that, traumas that have happened in other time-space realities can affect the chakra system. Now, there are many different energy systems out there. I work with the traditional 7 major chakras along the spine. I also work with some of the minor chakras. And so, for example, if you've had early childhood trauma in this life or in another life, that can affect your root chakra in this time-space reality and how you perceive your needs being met by the universe. And what I found is that when we clear away the karmic and energetic baggage that we don't need anymore, it's easier to become the deliberate creator. It's easy to believe the manifestations. It's easier to believe the affirmations. So often when we start our manifestation journey, we're hitting our head against the wall, right? Like, why can't I believe it? Why can't I believe it? And when we go in from this other direction and we start with the energetic balancing and the Akashic clearing, it becomes much easier to step into that empowered sense of who we are really meant to be.
Okay, so I don't know what happened except for when we start talking about spiritual stuff, sometimes gremlins always mess with our heads. And I think that's exactly what happened. So we are back now after figuring out some technical issues. You notice that Faith does not have her headsets on anymore. So don't let that throw you. This is better because now we can see her face even more clearly.
And I love her hair, so we can see it all now. So you said sometimes it's hard believing the manifestations. And today I was having a conversation with my nephew, and we went to visit a harmonic egg so he could have an experience in one here and with his mom. So she was in, and he and I were talking, and he said, what do you do when you just don't, how do you make yourself believe all this stuff? Or how do you handle when you don't feel like you believe it, but you want to? So I'm asking you that.
I love questions about the manifestation process because it's a beautiful time to implement manifesting in order to believe manifesting. So for that question, I would say you would put yourself into the space of, I'm so grateful that I believe that this can really work for me. I'm so grateful that the universe is showing me whatever it is that I need to align with how to make this work for me. I'm so grateful that spirit is showing me the path forward that will allow me to feel empowered in that space. And along that, I always advise people to use things like vibrational healing, like flower remedies, like essential oils, things that work on a different frequency, so we don't have to try so hard to believe the affirmations and et cetera, et cetera. But we're in that space of frustration, of knowing that there's something more, but not quite knowing how to surrender enough to get there. I also tell people that's when you just take a nap. That's when you put it down. That's when you do something fun. That's when you do something creative. If you have the intention that you want to align with it, the universe will give you the little breadcrumbs you need, the YouTube videos, the conversations, the books that you need in order to get there.
That is so true. And I just had an image when you were saying that you're manifesting, believing so that you can believe, so that, and like an image of looking in a mirror and a mirror and a mirror, and you see like 50 reflections. And if you can just change one of those, all of them will change.
I love that. Yes. I'm totally on board with that. Yes.
Yeah, that is fire, Karen. That's a great image.
Every once in a while.
That was incredible. Nice job. But it really goes deeper too, right? So I would love to manifest $1 million, but there's no way that my brain's going to go, yeah, this is going to happen. So there's a lot of work that has to go into creating a manifestation that is so far outside your comfort zone that it seems almost beyond belief.
Yes, yes. And how I work with my clients is to say, okay, let's go into the Akashic Records. Let's see where some of these limiting beliefs around believing that you are worthy, about aligning with abundance, looking at your relationship with money or anything else that may come from there. We're looking at inherited beliefs from your ancestors that we're clearing away. Then we're looking at your chakras in order to align them. For most people, their money chakra is their sacral chakra. So that's what we'd be looking at. And then we're talking about, okay, I know I'm not going to be sitting on my couch and $1 million is going to drop into my lap. If you're an ascended master, maybe, but for the rest of us, it's about manifesting a pathway to earning the income that feels good for us. It's about manifesting the inspired ideas that feel really good to us. And when we become a clear channel, when we clear away this stuff we don't need anymore, those pathways become so clear to us that we go, okay, now I understand how I can show up tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. And eventually you see it start to trickle in.
Mm.
That reminds me, I don't know if you posted a meme or something, but it was something like they don't want to be part of the process. They want to be part of the result. Letting yourself, knowing you're going to have to go through the process to get the result, just being okay with that, I think is the key.
Yeah.
Yes, because it's all about getting to a space of being comfortable in the journey and being comfortable in the process. My background is as an actor, and I remember the day when I went, oh my gosh, it's actually the rehearsals that are the fun part. The performance is just something you have to do, but it's the play and the creation and the collaboration in the journey, in the rehearsals. That's really where the juice is that we are being called to lean into and to enjoy even more.
Yeah. In full disclosure, I'm fully aware that Karen is completely pointing her finger at me when she says that meme, because I'm looking for that pill, right? I want that $60,000. Give me the pill I take to make it happen. It's something that, I hate to say it, but it takes a long time to get to the point where you can actually build that path for you. So are there any tips or tricks that someone can do to expedite that process, since there is no pill?
Yes. If we're talking about expediting the, healing your relationship with money, the first thing that comes forward is, well, how much are you willing to surrender? How much control are you really willing to give up? Because if you are totally willing to give up control on how the outcome looks, on how it's going to come to you, you are infinitely closer to aligning with how it's going to feel.
I am not even thinking I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. Didn't even go through my head, Will. Not even once.
All right. So I think we're going to have to disclose some things here. It's so weird.
Weird.
Starting with your question, Karen, about the belief, right? How do you believe? getting into this interview, I didn't disclose this, Faith, but I guess I should mention it now. I'm coming at this, I'm in a very low vibe mode at this point in time because there are things happening in our personal life, actually my professional life. There are changes happening that are very, very uncomfortable for me right now, for all of us, for our family. And a lot of me is saying, just trust in the universe and let it go and think everything's going to be fine and blah, 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 blah. But then you get in the conversation with the people and, oh, but did you think about this and this and this and this? And all of a sudden they paint this bleak picture that makes you go, oh God, yeah, you're so right. So then suddenly you find yourself in this traumatic mindset that definitely blocks any path forward. So you try to get yourself to high vibe things again. And then all of a sudden, here we are talking to Faith Streng about the exact message that I need at this moment in time to move forward.
He was at a point, Faith, earlier today. He's like, can you do the interview without me? And I'm like, I can, but I really think you need to do this. I think you need to be there, get a different headspace, think about something different. I think you really need to be in this interview. There was just something that I was like, he needs to hear this message. And it can't be from me because I'm the wife, you know.
And the key there is what you said is how much are you willing to surrender? Because you are so right. The more that I can say it's in the universe's hand and the universe always brings the greatest good, that's what I need to wrap my head around as much as possible. And it's just not easy sometimes.
We've been programmed for generations and lifetimes to only believe what's in front of us, to be affected by societal beliefs, cultural norms. It's been safe for us to live in groups. So we've been conditioned to believe and work with the people who are in our groups, right? But we are evolving so quickly now beyond what has been serving our world for so long. We hear a lot about, the breaking down of the patriarchy, right? And this is the space that we're coming into, to the space of what my ultimate work is, helping people remember their own divinity. And our relationship with money is how we do that, because we have so much urgency attached to it. But when we continue to remind ourselves, everything is always working out for me, and I am believing it a little more every day. I am choosing to believe it a little more every day. There is a spiritual solution to every problem. I just haven't aligned with it yet. There is no problem too big for the universe to solve. I just have to be the vessel for it. And it's just getting the ego, the small self, out of the way, right? And putting earmuffs on when you listen to those people who have those very 3D fear-based realities that this is how it has to be done. And you have to go, you know what? That doesn't make me feel good. So I'm not going to believe that anymore. I'm going to create something, co-create something with the divine that is so beautiful and perfect for me where I am at this point. And I'm just going to let myself be surprised and delighted.
It is. Things are weird. I mean, I needed this message just as much as well, because I'm halfway in and out of that space every single day too, because this is affecting all of us. But just the other day I was watching a podcast. It was Oprah, and I don't remember who she was talking to, but she said, I just tell myself it's going to work out for me. Like, it was almost just what you exactly said. I'm like, this is what the people do. So I've been trying, and now you're saying it too. So that's something that I need for me, is just to know things are going to work out. Things always work out for me.
My hope is it doesn't take 3 years like it did last time. They
don't say things are going to work out for me. Eventually. That's not part of the mantra, right?
I think it might be, actually. That might be what the mantra is.
Get rid of that part.
Eventually. And which is why I asked about the pill or how to expedite it, because it's just scary. That's the scariest part, is how long is it going to take?
So how do you, when you are helping someone with this, how do you go about this? You go into their Akashic Records, and how does that work?
For me, it's just my gift that I'm able to access them in a waking state. So in my sessions, it's just a conversation with people. I am clairvoyant, I am clairaudient, and I am clairsentient. So I see things, I hear things, and I feel things. And I'll generally start with the chakra system. And let's say I notice there's some blocks in the heart. We'll go into the Akashic Records, which could be a lifetime on Earth, a different planet, a parallel experience, and we find what experience happened there that's blocking the heart chakra in this life. We work with high-level guides, and we just say, let it go. We don't need it anymore. Thank you, angel babies. That's my favorite thing to say. Thank you, angel babies. And then the healing is done, and it really happens that quickly. So There's a lot of laughter in my sessions. I don't go into a trance channeling. I loved when we logged on today. You said, we don't take ourselves too seriously. There's a lot of laughing. I said, well, you are laughter. Excuse me. I said, you are my people, because that's in my sessions too. We can't take it too seriously. We're not supposed to. And there is time for that in the spiritual journey, but it should be playful. It should be fun. And so it's my sessions are very easy. People just have to show up. They just have to show up and be willing. And then, I'm just the vessel for it. So spirit does all the work.
And how many sessions does it usually take for someone to really for it to stick?
It depends on where people are in their spiritual journey. Sometimes one session is enough, and people will have huge breakthroughs, and they will see a path forward, and they will meet their guides and feel very supported. And I have other people that I've been working with for much longer periods of time. But I would say it's 3 is usually a good number. If I work with someone 3 times, we're going to get to some deep stuff, and they're really going to feel the effects of it.
And you can do them in a week, or you have to space them out a certain amount of time that,
You're clearing your calendar, aren't you, Will?
I am 100%.
Are you available Wednesday through Friday now?
It's different for everyone, usually because of my schedule. It's about a week or a week and a half. I think it is nice to have some time in between to let things integrate, but I certainly have done back-to-back sessions when it seemed appropriate for people before.
Okay. Well,
you said, I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off. Go ahead.
No, I love that you're asking so many questions. This is great.
I'm just feeling like I need to talk to her.
Yeah, we've had people actually ask us to hear you more. So here you go. Here's your chance.
I'm not going to shut up now. So you said something earlier, and Will and I have this debate. So we both have the things that we believe in, that we're skeptical about, and sometimes, we just don't agree. And everyone thinks, you do this podcast together, you have to be on the same page and everything. A lot of things we are, but there's quite a few things that we aren't. And karma is one of the things that we see it differently. I see it very differently from him. And he's, of the mindset of it's the past life and this and that. I'm more of the mindset it's this life and, you can fix this karma. I'm probably wrong, but I don't know. Maybe not. But when you said it, instead of using the terminology karma, and you were talking about the chakras, that kind of clicked with me, because that makes me think it's because the energy is always there. You can't, get rid of it. And so I can see energy being affected in one lifetime and kind of transforming and getting into your chakra and energy system and having an effect that way. So, is that how it works? Because that to me makes sense.
Yes, I love this question.
And be careful of which side you're taking. Just saying.
I think that what I will offer will actually be a middle ground for both.
Okay. All right.
So I see karma as, yes, this energy that when it's not addressed in a lifetime can carry over with the soul over and over and over again. And when I say energy, yes, it can affecting the chakras, but also I think of it as limiting beliefs that carry over from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. So let's say you have struggled with money in many other lifetimes. That sets up this limiting belief that money is just not for me. Money is over there. I'm not worthy. I don't know how. I don't understand it. And every lifetime you experience a trauma, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger until your soul becomes old enough in this time space reality for so many of us that we go, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. What can I do to heal on this very deep level? Meaning that just the healing you're doing in your own personal self-care is healing in all of these lifetimes. But it is, yes, I think of it, it's not that you did something bad in a past life and so something's bad is going to happen to you in this life. No, it's that you've had trauma. We know now the effects of trauma from this current lifetime and how that can affect us into adulthood, childhood trauma specifically. And so we're just zooming out and saying it's the same thing when we're looking at all of our other lifetimes too. And until they just keep building on each other, until we get to the point where, again, we are an old enough soul, we have the interest, the resources, the accessibility to all of these modalities and philosophies and religions than we've ever had before, we can piece everything together in a way that works for us as multidimensional beings to let go of everything that we don't need.
See, I can jump aboard that train. That makes sense to me. Not like I'm getting punished for something I did when I don't even, I'm like, okay. Because then you don't really learn the lesson if you don't remember what you did that you're making up for or you're atoning.
Feels like we're jumping all over the place, but I do have to ask, because there was a term that I used in your introduction that jumped out at me. I've not heard of before. Can you tell us what spiritual response therapy is?
Yes. So, as you said, this is the modality that my mother and grandmother did. And it is a book along with some accompanying charts you use with a pendulum to identify and clear past life trauma. And then a lot of other things too that I don't really even understand, but I use the charts. You don't have to, you just trust that the healing is happening. So it's a modality that didn't really take off. My mother and grandmother both studied with the gentleman who channeled this information. I now do teach it to clients and to groups, and I have found it is the easiest, most effective way to do this kind of quantum self healing for yourself. And that's where I started. My mother started doing this for me when I was 5. I remember going to kindergarten and having some anxiety. I didn't know it was anxiety. I just said my stomach hurt. And she said, well, let's do some clearing for you. And so I started doing it myself when I was 19, and I still love using a pendulum. I think it's an amazing way to open up to your high self, to open up your channels to your guides. And I have found it just incredibly effective and profound for everyone that I have taught it to, as well as for myself.
So then how did you now use that in your restorative spirit programming sessions? How is that different, or is it different?
I really have taken this material that I was raised with, where I was introduced to the body, mind, spirit connection, to angels, to parallel lives, and all of the complicated karmic relationships we can have. And then I combined it with my understanding of the chakras, which I learned in my Reiki trainings, which is not traditionally taught in Eastern Reiki. Obviously, the chakras come from India. And so using a pendulum is an example of what's called an ideomotor response, which is a physical reaction to a subconscious truth. It's when your eye twitches when someone says something that you don't really want to hear. And so using a pendulum then evolved for me into communicating with spirit through my eye blinks. So for me, 1 blink is yes and 2 blinks are no. So I was always had this connection with source beyond the pendulum. So when I started my Reiki business, my eyes were blinking furiously. And I knew that there was a lot of clearing happening, but I didn't really know what it was, because that was, again, just kind of a different thing I'd been doing for a long time, but wasn't really interested in pursuing it. And then as I continued on in my business and things began to evolve, I wanted to try and stretch myself a little bit. And my clairvoyant abilities opened up, my clairaudient abilities opened up, and I started to see things more clearly in my head as I was tuning in for people. So now I've moved away from the charts. I still use them sometimes, but almost all of the information I can get in my head now for people. And he does not work with the chakras in that material, but I have found using the chakras in it allows me to offer more helpful information to people. Allows me to offer more self-care practices that they can do. And then when I combine that with my understanding of all of the high frequency beings who are around us and all the help and love that they have for us, that is a beautiful element to my work as well, which is introducing people to this celestial squad that they have that is guiding them at all times. So I just put it all together in one mishmash that I call restorative spirit programming. It's the process of allowing the soul to rest so that we can begin the process of positively reprogramming it to remember its own soul purpose.
Wow. That sounds wonderful. Sign me up.
Yeah.
Well, we've got to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about the high frequency guides that you're talking about, as well as, Faith, you say that connecting with fairies can help us align with our soul purpose. And I want to hear all about that right after this break. And we're back on The Skeptic Metaphysicians. We're talking to Faith Streng, and she is an incredible healer. Before the break, we're talking about high frequency guides assisting us. So can you go a little bit more in depth? Like, what are we talking? Angels? Are we talking spirit guides? Is it our own higher selves? Who are those high frequency guides that help us?
All of the above and more.
Oh boy.
I remember hearing an Abraham Hicks talk at one point where someone was asking about their inner being. And they said, who exactly is their inner being? And Abraham said, it doesn't really matter. It's everything. But my little intellectual mind was like, ooh, no, I really want to know. I was like, I feel like spirit guides are different than angels. But who else is out there? I know that there's so many. So when I tell people about their guides, I say, listen, you have angels. We all have between 20 and 30 angels. That's my understanding. Spirit keeps telling me that's the number. I keep asking, and Spirit says, stop asking. We keep telling you it's 20 to 30 is the number. They love you unconditionally. They could never be mad at you, never judge you, never be disappointed in you. We have spirit guides who can appear as animals or Cirque du Soleil performers or anything in between. We have a guardian angel who is usually a soulmate or someone we have a karmic relationship with, and they're generally filling some kind of role for us that we don't necessarily have in this lifetime. My guardian angel shows up in fishnet stockings and combat boots and a little moto jacket, and she's just my best friend. She, I'm an only child. I was really close to my mother. So for me, having that like really close female companion has always been really important to me. So she keeps me from taking myself too seriously. Then we also have select ancestors because we are doing ancestral healing in this lifetime that our ancestors have not been able to do. So we have biological ancestors who are here helping us and supporting us. We have ascended masters that we can work with individually or as a group. People who walked this planet, attained the level of ascension and decided to stay and stick around and help the rest of us on this planet. And it's my understanding we also have an assigned ascended master who is here to help us on this journey. My assigned ascended master is John the Baptist, who really resonates with me with his fire. We have archangels we can work with. We have star being friends that we can work with. And we have elemental beings like fairies and dragons and merpeople. And we can throw unicorns in there who just vibrate at a different frequency. And so there is so much more help than we even consciously understand. And when we start to take that perspective into our world and we soften our gaze just a little bit and open up to our feeling center, feeling these guides around us instead of trying to see them or hear them, all of a sudden you become aware of all of this divine energy that is surrounding us all the time. And it's so much more fun.
Okay, hold on a second, because I knew we were going to talk about fairies, but you mean to tell me that unicorns and dragons are real? Are we just talking
people?
Or even the merp? Is this just energies that we're talking, like dragon energy, or the actual creature that breathes fire?
Well, I'm certainly not the only person who has this perspective, so it's not just coming from me. We'll just say that. But
disclaimer given.
we understand. People who are in the spiritual community, they've heard about 5D, right? We've heard about 3D, 4D, 5D, right? And we understand that we're kind of in 3D, but as we continue on our spiritual journey, we start vibrating faster and lighter, right? So we can begin to understand, well, what happens if you get to 6D or 7D or 8D or up to 12D, right? And so we can only begin to understand that these high frequency beings we might not be able to see with our eyes, which we know see a fraction of what is really existing in our reality. And in the 1500s, a gentleman named Paracelsus wrote a book that was like, listen, y'all, there's these beings. They're not demons. You just have to understand that they exist, even though we can't see them. And so he wasn't necessarily talking about dimensions at this point, but that was the first time that it had come, this idea of elementals, that these beings were attached to these different elements. So you can think of them as energy. You can think of them as actual beings. We know there are people who see fairies. We know there are people who communicate regularly with dragons in other dimensions. I talk to all of them. And I hear laughter when I'm talking to my fairy friends very, very audibly. And again, it's like when I open up my feeling center to these beings, it's so clear that they're there and they're giving to us. There's a reason unicorn, for example, they love children. Unicorn are 12th dimensional beings who are pure consciousness, pure light. And I guess it gets to a space where you're like, well, whether they're real or they're not real, if I open up to the idea of what a unicorn represents and I see how it feels to me, that's going to change you. And we just want to align with more things that bring us joy. So lean into it. That's what I would say.
I am leaning into the unicorn. Although that might hurt.
Oh, God. I was waiting for it.
And it took everything inside me not to clarify that after 80 and 90 comes 100, just so we're clear. It took you a minute, Karen.
I know. Trying to block some of these out.
No.
That's not even a dad joke. What would that be?
It's a good joke. That's all I do all day long.
Oh my gosh. That's one thing that I've even talked to Will, and I'm not an expert on anything, but it just changes your life and it makes it so much more of a joy to believe. Because you can believe and there's something, you can believe there's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And which one is going to make you feel better? And when you feel better, you're radiating that energy. You're bringing up the vibrations, and everything is better.
Yes. And even beyond that, when you're in that place, you are more able to be of service and share your gifts and be of service to the collective when you're coming from that excited and connected and positive place. And that's what we really want for all of us.
So my disclaimer is we actually contacted you because somehow a post that you put popped up on my feed, and it was something about, it was like a picture of like the woods or something. I don't remember exactly what it was. And you were talking about fairies, and I'm like, I feel like we need to reach out to this person. We haven't really talked about fairies. We haven't talked about, but there's something, that picture just was calling to me so strongly. So do you know what picture I'm talking about?
I do.
Not.
Yes, I do.
Well, can you explain what was that? Where were you?
I was on a beautiful hike in the Los Angeles region where I live. And as I was in this hike that I'd never been at before, I was feeling very intense levels of magic and energy. And anytime you're in a wooded area, there's some kind of creatures there, 100%, because that's really what they love the most. And so I was called to identify spots in nature where if you tune in, you are likely to find, or more likely to find, some elemental energy. And a lot of my understanding of this comes from Ted Andrews. A lot of people know Ted Andrews from his book Animal Speak, but he has a whole library and wrote extensively too on the magical realms of the Fae. And some of it is also my own intuition. And so little places like waterfalls, no matter how big they are, if there's tree roots that make like a little circle, especially if there's water in there. We're talking about, underneath rocks, if you see some little area, any place that you think a kid would think, oh, I bet there's fairies here. There 100% are, or elves, or tree spirits, or all of the other magical beings. I don't even know them all. But nature is so rich with healing and loving energy for us. And there are so many ways that it expresses it to us more than we have a conscious understanding at this point. So I just loved the idea after I posted that, of people walking outside in the woods and looking for the different places where they could find beings.
So we haven't really we've talked about angels, we've talked about spirits and guides and stuff, just with a lot of our other guests, but we haven't really talked about fairies. And as a kid, you read the fairy tales, but it's mostly like Sleeping Beauty and the three little fairies that, I don't remember what their names were, but can you explain what fairies are? What your understanding is?
Yeah, they are multidimensional beings who love our planet and care for our planet. They used to work much more openly with people when people were not quite so rooted in the 3D, which is, I believe, where many of these fairy stories came from. Mm-hmm. And they love humanity. They can be mischievous sometimes. I don't believe that there are evil fairies out there or that they mean us harm, but you do want to be respectful with them. I think thinking of them as high frequency energy is a really lovely viewpoint. And they are very playful and they are expert manifestors. And when you open up to fairy energy, however that works for you, whether you have an altar for them or you are walking around the woods looking for mushroom rings, which is usually a telltale sign of fairy energy. Maybe you have something set up in a garden for them. Whenever I leave out an offering to my fairies, I feel a shift in my home that I didn't understand before my most recent awakening what it was, but now I know that they're very present and all they want to do is play with humans in harmony to help us all reconnect with each other and with our generous and beautiful planet.
Okay. How can you help someone whose pragmatic mindset is having a difficult time connecting himself with the fact that fairies are real? How can you make that make sense to me?
I would say you have to be willing to step into the space that you don't see all of reality and that you don't hear all of reality, that our human senses are not in tune. You're not tuned in to everything that is around us. And as you start looking for magic, you'll feel it, and then you might be willing to bring in a little, like an understanding of it. But all you have to do is be open to spotting magic and feeling magic, and they'll start to come to you because it's fun. And we just want to have more fun.
So, Will, maybe it's like a dog whistle. We can't hear it, but the dogs do. So just
Mm.
because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah. You are full of
I am
wonderful
on
imagery today.
fire
You
today.
are. Okay. So I understand a little bit better. And I can get behind the other dimensional being, right? In fact, it's funny. We still laugh about Sasquatch. We can't believe that there's the world's champion hide and seek player out there, but say that he's a multi-dimensional being who becomes invisible at times. Suddenly, oh yeah, that makes sense. So I can see how fairies might make sense. And that's that same mindset. But then how does connecting with them forward our soul's purpose?
Well, when you are connecting with fairies, you are connecting with your inner child. And as we are talking about remembering our own divinity, we're talking about remembering our innocence. We're talking about remembering those times when we were so joyful as children, when we would just play. As adults, we don't really give ourselves time to play anymore because we get so bogged down by our responsibilities. But fairies allow us to remember that beautiful aspect of our souls, which is so real and so there. And when we are talking about manifesting, we're stepping into the space of infinite possibilities, of infinite solutions. And so attuning to the fairy energy allows you to be more open to that world.
I love how you put that, especially at the beginning, kind of being more childlike. And people have asked us, how does Christianity factor in? Is it exclusive? When we've spoken to people that are, religious in a, I guess, traditional Christian sense. And I went to Catholic school for 12 years and Will did as well. I don't think for all 12. He went for a while.
I went for 12 hours.
Until they kicked him out.
Yeah.
But one thing I remember, and I don't know why I remember this, but you just triggered that when you said that, is that, that God said you have to become a child again before you can go into the kingdom of heaven. And my thought was always like, well, that would explain people having dementia because you act like a child, you don't remember. But now this is actually, to me, a much preferable explanation is being childlike in your ability to see the beauty, to be open, to believe, to feel, to have fun and laugh. So I'm like, see, they're not exclusive at all. It's like we've always said, different modalities saying the same thing.
Yeah. And when you think about how kids are so much closer to the veil, you hear of kids remembering. University of Virginia right now is doing a big study on past lives with children who remember them. Maybe it also talks about getting back to a feeling of being open to believe in fairies and in all this other stuff that's out there in order to move forward, because we do place filters on ourselves as we grow up and we were told this is the way the world is supposed to work, and you tend to close yourself off to these kinds of things. Maybe we need to go back to that time when we were able to remember our past lives and see spirits and fairies and angels and things like that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And we have in so many other lifetimes. There is so much about what has come before the modern era that we don't understand. We know there was history before our understanding of history on this planet. And really the overarching thing that we're coming into is embracing the mystery of it all we're never going to have it all figured out. It might not ever all make sense to us, but there's so much more. And we have been limiting ourselves to the boxes and the beliefs and the expectations. And all we have to do is be willing to step outside of that into the discomfort of the mystery and the not knowing. And then all of a sudden, the universe and the cosmos can just rush into your soul.
Mic drop.
I mean, where do you go from there?
I don't know.
How can you possibly come up with any other questions? My gosh. Faith, you are amazing. If someone wanted to reach out to you to take advantage of your one-on-one sessions and things like that, what's the best way for someone to do that?
They can go to my website, faithstrenghealing.com. I'm also active on TikTok and Instagram, so they can find me at Faith Streng on either one of those platforms as well.
Wonderful. We're going to add direct links to those in our show notes. So all you need to do is go to skepticmetaphysician.com, go to her episode page. You'll see those links directly laid in there. It is a one-click situation. It'll be super easy for you to connect with Faith. I can't thank you enough, Faith, for coming in and helping me to get out of this low vibe.
It was so low.
Crud that I've been
So
in
low.
today. Yeah, really appreciate it.
It's
And
such an
there-
honor to be here with both of you. And I know that, Will, there's something really tremendous coming for you, because this kind of pressure that you're experiencing, it only comes when there's like a big rebirth that's about to happen. So get really excited about that for sure. And Karen, start talking to your fairy friends because they love you very much.
Yeah. I will.
Yay, yay. All right. So I have to ask you, since you have access to the records consciously, is there anything that's jumping out at you? Any messages that are coming out to you about us that you think we should hear?
Yeah, you're soulmates. I mean, that's very clear. You have many lifetimes where you have been romantic partners, where one or the other of you has been a teacher to each other. You've been siblings together, and you're doing very important work. You have your balance and where you're different and your different strengths. It just serves each other so well. And Will, I can tell you've had a lot of past lives where you've really had to like buckle down and do the work, and you didn't have a lot of time to be in this space to play and explore and travel in all the senses of the world. And this is your lifetime where it all comes together. And Karen, you are a super magical being. You have so many witchy past lives. And also for you, like bringing that into the modern world now, we get to understand how it can work for us. Like for both of you, this is really an important lifetime where it's all coming together, and it's healing for you, for each other, your communities, and you're doing such important work with this podcast. So on behalf of humanity, thank you.
Oh,
You.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Faith. That was incredible. Wonderful. Once again, thank you for coming on the show. Please keep up the wonderful work that you're doing for humanity. And it is a pleasure to be connected with you. Hope we stay in touch.
Thank you so much. What an honor. Take good care.
Me too.
Well, thanks for coming along on this journey of discovery with us. We'd love to continue our conversation with you on our website at skepticmetaphysician.com or on Facebook and Instagram under Skeptic Metaphysician Podcast. If you know someone who would benefit from hearing the messages we're sharing on the show, do them and us a favor and share the show with them. It will help get the word out about us, and it may just change someone's life for the better. And if you're listening to this on the radio and you missed something, well, not to worry. All of our shows, including this one, can be found at skepticmetaphysician.com, where you can also watch the videos or even send us an email or voicemail directly from the site. We absolutely love feedback and would appreciate hearing from you. I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as we have. That's all for now. We'll see you on the next episode of The Skeptic Metaphysicians. Until then, take care.